Welcome to a community tourism podcast with Scott and Angus Tourism Cooperative. Angus Tourism Cooperative is an organisation that brings together anyone interested in tourism in Angus, whether a business, organisation or an individual. And I'm joined here today by their chair, Alison Elliot.
Hi Alison, it's lovely to see you here today.
Hi Sarah, nice to see you too.
So as a partner of the Community Tourism Project, I thought it would be really good to come together and have a bit of a chat around it and learn more about Angus Tourism Cooperative and your involvement. Can we maybe just start with you telling us a little bit about Angus Tourism Cooperative and I guess how it came about?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Alison Elliot. I am the chair of the Angus Tourism Cooperative at the moment. Tourism Cooperative started just a few years ago when the local authority and local businesses came together to address the needs of tourism in Angus in particular. But we also realised early on that individuals and community groups also had a role to play in tourism in Angus. And the Tourism Cooperative, as I say, was created at that point when we all came together to decide to work together to promote Angus as a destination, but also to promote Angus to those already living in Angus, so local tourism as well. And we have been doing that ever since. And although we started small, we're growing. And despite COVID over the last year, we still are as an organisation going from strength to strength. So yeah, that's the Tourism Cooperative.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know you've been involved in a leader project as well for the last 3 years, and that really has focused on community-led tourism. What's your experience been like working with that? Was it Romania and Belgium that you were working with, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So quite early on in the Tourism Cooperative, we at that point became involved with this leader project. We had the opportunity to bid in to be part of this transnational cooperation project, which was very much focusing on community-led tourism and the positive impact that can have on the local communities. So we were working with Mietjesland in Belgium and Bazinul-Dornelor in Romania, and both of those regions are quite similar in makeup to Angus. They are surrounded by kind of major cities, and they don't see much tourism directly. You know, they're not necessarily the obvious destination of choice when people are coming into the region, but they also had a lot to offer for a real authentic experience. So that project had particular themes. So we looked at how we welcome visitors in an authentic, real way. We looked at food and drink, and we also looked at rural and craft skills. As I said, they're all quite rural areas as well. So it was very much around the quality of a visitor's experience rather than how many visitors were coming into the area, and looking at how the community could very much welcome the visitor, and that the experience was as part of the community and not as a tourist trap or an unrealistic reflection of an area. So it was great to be part of that. And although we're no longer in Europe, we still have those really strong connections now to each of those areas. And the Romanian party will be visiting Scotland, hopefully COVID permitting in the near future, to continue their learning, and we will as a group be travelling to Belgium to meet with the Belgians and Romania again, hopefully in 2022. So it may be that businesses have to finance that themselves or individuals finance that, but there is a real kind of partnership and opportunity to learn and share from each other. So it's something that Angus has been very much looking into for the last 3 years, and it's definitely been influencing a lot of the work of the cooperative, and shaping the way that individuals, as I say, that have been involved, but also businesses, how they see tourism within Angus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had the joy actually of meeting the group at one point. I came through to Merton Farm and met some of them, which was really lovely to hear their stories as well about their areas. So I'd love to know about some of the challenges you've had around community engagement, because I know that we've spoken about this previously.
Yeah, I mean, community engagement is always, I would say, the biggest challenge when working well around tourism, but also in any kind of community-led activity. It's we often find, and I know it's replicated across other areas of Scotland and even across Europe now, we hear the same stories, that it's quite often the same individuals in a community that will take on numerous roles and take part in numerous projects. And for a start, we found that a big challenge, where we're meeting, getting our message out to the right people, where we're reaching everyone that we possibly could. But actually, we've also found that those individuals tend to be the individuals and communities that make things happen. And that there is absolutely no harm in making sure that you are connecting with those people, because they have connections elsewhere, because they've been involved in so many projects. And it is a little bit dependent on the makeup of an area, but with Angus in particular, we have really distinct towns and areas within Angus. So although we're a rural area, there are still very distinct regions within that. And something that's happening in Kirriemuir, they may not be aware of what's happening in Montrose, but if you can connect to those key players in each of those towns, you have a real opportunity of engaging directly with the community. So yeah, that engagement and getting to as many people as possible is always the biggest challenge, but actually there are positives in seeing the same faces round the table at your meetings, at your events, when you're talking about what can happen next, because they are the individuals that are successful, that the community can rely on them. They're well known, that if they have the passion to deliver a project or to be part of it, that there's something behind that, and that others are then willing to engage, because, as I say, that the community know that something will happen because of that. So that's always, I think, going to be the challenge. And speaking, as I said, with the Belgians and the Romanians and the experiences they had, it's the same thing in those other countries. So perhaps there's a little bit of volunteer fatigue sometimes, but equally, if you can have success in your projects and you can have those tangible projects, successes, I think then that's a great way to ensure that engagement continues, and perhaps you see new leaders coming through in the future, and positive connections being made for the future too.
And do you think that volunteer fatigue has been made worse during COVID, or do you think people have stepped up a bit more? Have you seen a mixture?
I think it's a real mixture. I think the biggest worry, the biggest fatigue is Zoom fatigue or Teams fatigue, and everything being electronic. But yeah, I mean, on a more serious note, it is, it is the same people that you see in lots of different roles, particularly when it's community projects, as we say. But people have stepped up because they love the area that they live. They love being part of their community. And if they feel a bit of responsibility towards that, and they're willing and they have the time, they don't always have the time or the capacity, but they really want to make sure that something is successful. I think they can see the benefit that will bring to the community. And so far, in my involvement in various projects, they have been successful, and things have happened because people want to make sure that they happen. It's just long term how sustainable that is always going to be a challenge. But at the moment, I think the online presence is the biggest challenge. I think face-to-face again, and people being out in their communities where they're interested in being and want to see the difference be made. I think that's rewarding. So that isn't a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Insider's Guide to Angus has just been launched. When was it launched? Just recently?
A few weeks. I know. Yeah, just a few weeks ago now. So yeah, it's another great example, I think, in Angus that has shown, I think, how far we've perhaps come in Angus about businesses and individuals and the local authority working together. It was created, or the idea was brought up in what we call our Pride of Place group. So Angus has a strategy for tourism, but it doesn't belong to one organisation, so it's not led by the local authority, it's not led by the Tourism Cooperative alone. It's very much built and made and delivered by individuals, community groups, businesses and the local authorities together. It's a real partnership. We have various themes that run across that, but one is a Pride of Place group, so looking very much at the community. And we realised very early on in lockdown and COVID last year that people were discovering what was on their own doorstep, and that they were being forced to stay within their local authority boundary, and that they, in Angus in particular, were spoilt for choice of where to go and places to visit and walks to go on with your family. and we wanted to kind of harness some of that enthusiasm within the community and showcase what Angus has. So over a number of weeks, we sought feedback from, as I say, those businesses and individuals and people that love Angus, so visitors that had been to us in the past, and we created what we call the Insider's Guide. There's 10 categories, you know, like family days out, cycling routes, walking routes, food and drink, and it was then the top 10 we collated of recommendations in each of those categories. We then looked for ambassadors or individuals that were well known across Angus, or people that had a real love and passion for certain aspects. And we've created video blogs, which are slowly being released over this summer. I was able to showcase the beauty spots of Angus, and my video was just published a couple of weeks ago now. And we wanted, as I say, that the idea is that it's individuals that are showcasing what Angus is about. It's us talking about why places are special to us, how we've experienced it as a family or as an individual, and what those places or walks or events mean to us as individuals, to be real, as I say, an insider's guide to Angus. And I think that is just a really great example of a community coming together to showcase what's here. And it's just a really small example of something really positive in Angus. And we're hoping next year to build on that with the Year of Scotland's Year of Stories. And we want to again go out to communities and just add to that and update the guide, and we'll publish that guide of stories to Angus next year. And again, all of that has come from this Pride of Place group that we have, looking at tourism and community, and the importance of the people that live in Angus being proud of where they live and being able to share that with those that visit Angus. So I think that's a really great project in Angus at the moment.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And we'll attach the video blogs so that people can have a look at them as well.
Yeah,
we'll attach a link for those. And it would be really good. I'm really interested to see what happens with the stories. I'd love to be able to share that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mentioned at the beginning as well that you're been part of the community-led tourism project. So Brechin was one of the areas that we've been working with, and you have become a partner within that, and you've been very supportive of the group going forward. And I'd be interested to know what your journey has been like as part of that group, and and where you see things going in the future.
Yeah, so I mean, the Tourism Cooperative, we see ourselves as somewhat of an umbrella organisation, almost verging on a development type organisation. The interesting thing is, of course, we're working across a theme in Angus rather than a town or a locality, which makes things challenging, but it also means we have huge potential for where we can have impact. We have other projects. We have one called Appetite for Angus, which is showcasing food and drink, but also working with communities and third sector organisations to make sure that local people have access to local food. So again, looking at the food poverty aspect. But we also have something called Dog Friendly Angus and Dundee. We've kind of managed to sneak them in there, but it's again local community providing information to dog owners, because Angus is a fantastic place to visit for people that have dogs. So making sure that people know where to go, where they can walk, how they can enjoy Angus if they're dog owners. So that's kind of a couple of other projects. We do have other ones as well, but when it came to the possibility of being part of the Brechin project, it was so simple for us to say yes. We already had the structures in place of how we can help groups deliver projects, and still being under that umbrella and having the governance of the Tourism Cooperative to support them. We have 3 directors on the steering group in Brechin. There's only myself that doesn't live in Brechin, so I feel like a little bit of an outsider, but I'm on the steering group just because of my interest in community-led tourism. And we have 2 other directors that sit on the steering group because they live locally. But we've been really supportive because it is absolutely about everything that we're doing. I mentioned earlier that in Angus we have a really clear strategy around delivering tourism and enhancing the tourism offer, but we realise that you need that strategy, you need the policy behind the delivery, so that there is a clear targets for you to reach. What you want to be your outcomes of your work that you're doing, and to help the structure with all of that. So our I suppose overarching framework in Angus sits naturally with that community-led as well, and there's a clear place. All of the projects that we're delivering within our framework, so many of them fit into the community-led project in Brechin. So those are things that are already happening that will enhance anything that's directly happening in Brechin as well. So I think, yeah, from our point of view as a partner, we're just there to help and support the steering group in making perhaps difficult decisions, but also to see what else is happening across Angus. I think communication is key in a rural area this size, that we don't duplicate activity, that we use resources wisely, and make the most of things that are already being delivered and already happening in Angus, and make sure that Brechin is in the best position possible to benefit from that. So yeah, we see ourselves very much as a supportive role, sitting in the background, making sure that, you know, positive things that have happened in Brechin, or things that we've found and discovered that work well in this project, you know, can they be replicated across Angus? Because we have that kind of overview to be able to say, well, you know, Brechin managed to do this, so why can't Kerrymuir or why can't Forfar do that? And I think we're in it for the long term, that anything that happens in Brechin, we want to replicate elsewhere if it's successful and if it's positive. So I think that's, from our idea, you know, we're there to long-term support this project, and it doesn't just necessarily have to end when resources and financial support ends through the pilot project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of this conversation would be quite useful to take to, we've on Friday we've got our session with Ivan McKee, MSP, to kind of explore the barriers and opportunities. And I think the Angus Tourism Cooperative and the work that you do is an excellent example of community-led tourism. So I think would really benefit on kind of bringing into that conversation as well about what's happening at a national level and how that support filters down to that local level as well. And working with the various agencies, because the other thing is that you do, of course, work with the national agencies as well, don't you? You've got
absolutely, yeah. The Tourism Cooperative, we have Visit Scotland represented at all of our board meeting, throughout the regional representation at Visit Scotland. But we really closely work with Angus Council. You know, the biggest challenge that they have is engagement with businesses, and in Angus they run our destination marketing campaign. So we need to make sure that they work for and with the businesses rather than a standalone organisation. And that's, again, one of the biggest challenges is that engagement. But how do we make sure that the businesses are well represented? And that's really what the Tourism Cooperative is about. But it isn't just businesses, like I say, you know, that we're about community groups. We have lots of great community groups in Angus that run really significant tourist sites, or we have third sector organisations that run destinations. My own organisation at Merton is one of those. And I think we also now, having worked across the framework and the strategies and even the steering group project in Brechin, there are individuals that may not work in tourism but can have a huge impact on the tourist industry. So whether that's a group that manage the flower displays in town, or do litter picks, however that may be, there are significant individuals across Angus that have a huge impact on tourism, and I think that it's worth all of us remembering that. So I think that's one of the strengths of the Tourism Cooperative in the framework, that we know it doesn't just belong to the local authority, or it doesn't just belong to a group of businesses. It really is there for everyone in Angus to benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing how things progress in the future for both Angus Tourism Cooperative and, of course, the Brechin Group as well, as they start to move forward. I think it's quite an exciting time, and we'll hopefully see lots of activity happening over the next couple of years. But thank you so much for your time. It's been great to have a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
And we'll definitely catch up again soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.